Hello and welcome to Any Given Sunday. This is the Week 11 headlines. And Tyler, I gotta be honest, I have no fucking clue who's good as far as teams go. But there's there's a few players, but there's one player in particular that I am certain is good, and that is Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, Coop. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, he's already been having an absolutely spectacular season, and but he just had his best performance of the year. All of the great performances he's had so far this season, he somehow just topped it. And in last week's overtime win, had 32 carries, absolutely shouldering the workload, but had 244 yards and 3 touchdowns for the fifth time of this season. And I was curious about what his pace looked like to catch LaDainian Tomlinson, the current record holder for rushing touchdowns in the season.
Sure.
And LaDainian Tomlinson that year had 3 or more touchdown games,
That's crazy.
but also had 5 2-touchdown games.
In addition to, so 11 games with 2 or more scores.
And I've had a couple 4-touchdown games, and I'm really wondering if Jonathan Taylor's going to be able to catch that record. I don't think he will, because to do so, he's got to average 2 or more touchdowns for the rest of the season. And as amazing as he's been doing, in today's NFL, I just don't know if that kind of ridiculous production is sustainable for an entire season. But I'm excited to see if he's going to be able to catch that record.
Well, and the thing that's really going to hurt him is, coincidentally, our second headline. The Colts are developing a turnover problem. Daniel Jones, in particular, is developing a propensity for turning the ball over, which is bad. You don't want your quarterback to do that. You don't want your quarterback to throw interceptions, but they happen, especially if you're trying to push the ball down the field. What you really can't have your quarterback doing is fumbling. And Daniel Jones has fumbled in the last 2 games, and it cost them against Pittsburgh. And thankfully, the defense and Jonathan Taylor were strong enough against Atlanta over in Berlin to take care of business there and make sure that everything was nice and squeaky clean. But they've got Kansas City this week. You can't turn the ball over against Kansas City. As rough as the start to their season has been, as much as they might be 500 after this week, you cannot turn the ball over against Kansas City. Can't throw interceptions, can't have your quarterback fumble, can't have your running back fumble. And that is more concerning to me. That hurts Jonathan Taylor's chances at getting the rushing touchdown record. LaDainian Tomlinson, by the way, absolute beast. I have no idea how he scored that many touchdowns in a single season.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about the Colts this season as one of the true contenders in the AFC. I mean, they've beaten other dominant teams, and they've blown out bad teams left and right. But a part of being a contender, you cannot be turning the ball over offensively like this. You do not win games consistently losing the turnover differential. It is absolutely not a formula for success, and that's what the Colts, specifically Daniel Jones, has been exhibiting over the last couple of weeks. And for Colts fans and for a lot of NFL fans, it's okay, Daniel Jones is reverting back to New York Giants Daniel Jones. And I hope that that isn't the case. I hope he's able to rally back and keep putting together efficient performances like he was earlier in the season. But the last couple of weeks, Daniel Jones has starting to look like New York Giants Daniel Jones.
Well, and if the Colts fall from the status of contenders, it really only adds to the question, how many contenders are there in the AFC? Because you could probably comfortably toss Kansas City up there, but Buffalo has some questionable losses. Baltimore has questionable losses. Pittsburgh has questionable losses. Jacksonville only has one really notable win, and that's over the Chiefs. Who are the contenders in the AFC if not the Colts? And why is it just fucking Mahomes? Why can't we have someone else in a weakened AFC take over?
I mean, right now, there really isn't a clear-cut dominant team right now. But with that being said, there are some teams that, particularly the New England Patriots, that are more of a rising team. Like you said, the Buffalo Bills haven't been as dominant, especially in the last month. The Chiefs have not been as dominant so far this season. And at time, the Denver Broncos, the other 8-2 team in the AFC, have looked very, very questionable at times. And we talked about them and how they have struggled to put together a successful game in all three phases. And right now, the AFC to me feels wide open.
Yeah.
It feels like maybe the Ravens starting the season 1-5. And I believe a team has never made the playoffs after starting 1-5.
It's
I think,
very few for sure.
I think the Ravens can absolutely make it happen this season. In an AFC and with their remaining schedule, I think the Ravens can absolutely come through and maybe not look like a shining contender, but if they can get into the playoffs, that's all you need to do. When you start the season at 1-5, all you got to do is get a seat at the table, and you've got a chance. But in terms of contenders and teams that I think are clear-cut head and shoulders at the top of the AFC hierarchy right now, I've got to say the New England Patriots. They've been looking really, really well in November. They've been looking really, really good last week, and they're just kind of rolling. They're playing really well offensively. Is Stephon Diggs the key to developing a quarterback?
Sources say
Josh Allen, Drake May would probably agree. No.
a little bit of C.J. Stroud in there too, as the Texans pull off one of the most stunning upsets of the week. But yeah, I think if we're looking at clear-cut AFC contenders, there's really only three teams that you can bring up, and it's New England, Indianapolis, and Denver. And of those three, Indy and New England are clearly the strongest. New England is a little young and green for me. Indy, if they continue on their current pace, isn't going to beat anybody with the amount that they're turning the ball over. And Denver, we've talked a lot about the Broncos this year. I had them as my preseason AFC Super Bowl pick. They disappear for halves or more at a time. And that's a problem. You can't do that and be a Super Bowl contender. And there's a difference between what the Broncos did on Thursday in a 10-7 dogfight against the Raiders and what the Eagles and Packers, two of the contenders in the NFC, did on Monday night, where that was a defensive battle through and through. There weren't any points scored until halfway through the third quarter, and neither team scored a touchdown until late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter.
I mean, yeah, it's just when you can't put together a complete game, it is hard to win. I mean, the Broncos so far this season have been successful at making a handful of comebacks against, like the insane one against the Giants. But it's not a formula for continuous success, and that is my biggest concern with the Denver Broncos. And like you just said, the Colts have had a turnover issue over the last couple of weeks. But right now, the Denver Broncos, Indianapolis Colts, and New England Patriots all sit at 8-2, with the best record after that being the Los Angeles Chargers at 7-3. And the Chargers, similarly to the Broncos, I think, have been a team that have struggled to put a complete game on paper. They've struggled to put a game out there where they just absolutely dominated for all four quarters and in all three phases. But I think the Chargers could be a contender, maybe not for the Super Bowl, but for the AFC title game, and can never count the Chiefs out and can never count the Ravens out when they've got as much as I hate to push the narrative that quarterbacks drive it, but Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson have been playing really well this year and have really been putting their offenses on their shoulders, and you really can't count either of those guys out as long as they got a seat at the table.
Well, and a much easier question, I think, to answer is, who are the contenders in the NFC? And I think there's 3 to 5 pretty clear answers to that, depending on how you feel. God damn it. depending on how you feel about Seattle and Detroit and Green Bay. But I think the two undisputed, clear-cut top of the NFC teams somehow are our teams, the Eagles and the Rams.
I mean, a lot of people would put the Lions over the Rams right now, which is absolutely respectable, I think. I mean, the Rams sitting at 7-2 right now haven't really played their schedule so far this season hasn't been very difficult. I mean, their best win came in a close one against the Indianapolis Colts. But I think that right now, if we're talking about NFC contenders, it's got to be Philly. You've got to have Detroit. You've got to have Seattle, the way that their offense has been absolutely firing. I mean, it, dare I say, it looks like a 2001 St. Louis Rams offense, the way that they've been putting up points in the past month or so. But I think the LA Rams and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are also teams that you absolutely kind of have to have in that conversation. I think the Chicago Bears are currently tied for the division lead in the NFC North, but to me, they have been getting better at it, but they're 6-3 with a negative point differential.
Well, and as high as I am on the Bears, as much as they could make the playoffs, a 9-8 record, 10-7, not at all out of the question. They're a year or two away from being contenders, at least. If they come out next year and they just start absolutely dominating, it wouldn't stun me depending on their free agency and draft, but it would surprise me this year if they were able to upend the Lions or Green Bay in the rematch, Detroit in the rematch, or Minnesota in the rematch, or Green Bay the two times that they play them, or Philadelphia when they have them left on the schedule. And then this is not on our sheet, but I just want to throw in Jeff Hafley, defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, is doing a hell of a job. You can look at the Packers and you can look at their struggles and wonder if they're a contender. It is not Jeff Hafley's unit's problem. In their 3 losses, they have given up less than 15 points in each. They have 2 losses where they gave up 13 and a loss where they gave up 10, and that is just simply not Jeff Hafley's fault.
Yeah, I mean, the only 2 teams that have allowed less points in the NFC than the Green Bay Packers this year are the Seahawks and the Rams. And while playing significantly better offenses throughout this season than either of those teams. So absolutely shout out to Jeff Hafley and what he's been doing with that Green Bay crew. And I think that they could get even better if he can figure out how to utilize Micah Parsons in the correct way, because we talked about this a little bit earlier today off camera, but Micah Parsons isn't being used in the same way as he was in Dallas, and I think it's definitely showing up at most certainly on the stat sheet and most certainly on Micah Parsons' impact to the game. We know Micah Parsons is a great player, but Green Bay's been Hafley's been trying to use him as a pure pass rusher, and I think he's much more efficient when he's used in numerous spots on the field, because he absolutely can play pretty much anywhere on that linebacker level or at the outside linebacker level. And I think the Green Bay could be in that top contender tier, but I think right now, with some of the losses that they've had, I just can't put them there yet.
Well, and losing to the Eagles is not so much factored in. That was a defensive battle. Neither team's offense could do anything. Losing to the Panthers and the Browns really hurts their candidacy. And it's not like contenders can't have bad losses. The Eagles lost to Tampa last year was atrocious. They got blown out. It was like 33-9 or something. But Green Bay, similar to Denver, has a wonderful defense. Their offense disappears for halves at a time or games at a time, and you can't have that in a contender.
No, and bringing this back to the hierarchy of the NFC contenders right now, I think you got to have Philly at 1. I think your number 2 spot is probably going to be the Detroit Lions. Your number 3 spot is probably going to be the Rams or the Buccaneers. And then I think your 5 is going to be the Seahawks. And I've got the Seahawks at 5 right now when it comes to contending for a Super Bowl. because of what we saw out of Sam Darnold in last year's playoffs.
Yeah.
And Sam Darnold, being from the franchises that he played for prior to the Minnesota Vikings, had 0 playoff experience.
Yes.
And I'm one to say that if it's your first game in the playoffs and you don't play well, you make that mistake.
Yeah.
You didn't play great. And I'm curious to see how he'll respond when the Seahawks highly, highly likely make the playoffs this season. Because if he can go out and he can play well, the Seattle Seahawks have a genuine chance at making the Super Bowl. And that's something that I honestly believe. And as a Rams fan, it's something I'm a little bit afraid of. But that's why I've got the Seahawks currently at 5, is because I do have a lot of question marks about how Sam Darnold is able to perform under pressure.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I saw a Seahawks fan on Twitter, and I really don't know why this happened, but they were mad that somebody had discredited Sam Darnold's playoff appearance in Minnesota, and so they started taking swipes at Jalen Hurts. One of those guys has won in the playoffs more than once, and
one of them also has a significantly better per 17.
Well, and I think that Sam Darnold could be good in the playoffs, which is what I said to the Seahawks fan. There's no reason to believe that Sam Darnold can't do what he's doing right now in the playoffs. But until he shows it to me, I need to see it. And I'm not going to slander him because he only had 1 playoff game. He did dip in efficiency and productiveness at the end of last season. I don't know if that was a Kevin O'Connell problem or if it was a Sam Darnold problem or if it was just the defenses they were playing at the end of last year were really good. We'll see what happens with Darnold and Kubiak this year, but if we see a similar end-of-year slide and they go one and done in the playoffs after the dominance they showed in the regular season, narratives and labels are going to be developed, and that's not necessarily fair to Darnold, but it's the world that we live in, and it's the NFL that we live in.
Yeah, and with that wraps up the headlines that we had for this week. And if you guys didn't see the Instagram post that we had earlier in the week, these are the weekly awards that we selected for this week. Winning the Unk Still Got It, we've got DeMarcus Lawrence in his first year with the Seattle Seahawks.
Half a sack, 2 fumble recoveries, took both of them back for touchdowns. The touchdowns are really the Unk Still Got It part. It was nice to see him finally score a touchdown on someone.
I mean, you also just love to see an old big guy rumble.
Yeah.
You know, you it's just something you love to see. It's something that warms the heart of a football fan.
Especially when he's not doing it to your team for the first time in his career.
Yes.
DeMarcus Lawrence, a former Cowboy, wrecked a lot of our game plans before we really started hyper-focusing on our offensive line. Great player, well-deserving of Unk Still Got It. Our big man of the week, related to DeMarcus Lawrence's performance, was Tyrese Knight, the Seattle Seahawk who forced both of those fumbles on his only 2 sacks of the game. Excellent performance by Knight. It helped Seattle build a 35-0 lead at the half. Only 21 of those points came from the offense. I say only. 21 is a good amount of points for the offense to put up. To only be outscoring your defense by 7 at the half is insane. A huge credit to the defense, a huge credit to Mike McDonald and the Seahawks coaching staff. Props.
Yeah, a great game from both of those players on the Seattle defense. And our next NFC player of the week, my QB, my guy, my unk, Matthew Stafford. He played another really, really phenomenal game. The first quarterback to ever throw 4 more touchdowns in 3 straight weeks with three straight games with 0 turnovers. The first to ever do it. Last week he completed 24 passes of 36 attempts with 280 yards and 4 touchdowns on a 127 passer rating. Absolutely great game. Absolutely boosting his MVP conversation is his MVP candidacy, which if he can win that, if he can take home an MVP, I think it puts him in the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to say first ballot, but absolutely going to get in if he can take home some hardware.
Well, and Stafford is already a borderline late-term Hall of Famer right now.
Yeah.
Some people would argue Hall of Very Good. Some would argue Hall of Fame. An MVP and or a second ring goes a long way to securing that. The MVP goes a much longer way because it shows that even at 37, Matt Stafford is still peaking. And from one MVP candidate to another, it's no surprise. Everybody knew this was coming. The AFC Player of the Week. I wrote this down as soon as the game was up. We hadn't even opened the 1 o'clock window yet. I wrote down the AFC Player of the Week. Jonathan Taylor, 32 carries, 244 yards. His 5th 3 total touchdown game of the season, which is the same amount as Matt Stafford. He is insane. Those are quarterback numbers. If a quarterback threw the ball 32 times, had 244 yards and 3 touchdowns, they would win the Player of the Week award, as evidenced by the fact that Matt Stafford threw it 36 times for 280 yards and an extra touchdown, and did so in the NFC. And I'm going to give props to our Coach of the Week, because I predicted a few weeks ago that he would get fired after an embarrassing loss. He didn't lose that game. He lost the one after. But he didn't lose that game. And he didn't lose this week. And I did not give him much of a chance. Mike McDaniel, future Eagles offensive coordinator. I hope. Every time I've said that about somebody, they've immediately coached themselves out of that job. First it was Shane Steichen, then now Mike McDaniel is saving his job. The Dolphins, with the surprise upset of the week, beating the Bills, shutting them out in the first half, holding Josh Allen down. Kudos to Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins.
Yeah, huge shout out to Mike McDaniel, potentially saving his job, a coach that was not able to save his job. Just to quickly bring it up, was that Brian Daboll was fired from the Giants. And with Brian Daboll being gone from the Giants, it does make me wonder who's next. I'm concerned that it's going to be Chris Shula, but just a quick mention that Brian Daboll has been fired from the Giants. But Mike McDaniel, huge shout out for the Coach of the Week. And our passing chart of the week comes from a very unsuspecting player, but it is a pretty chart. Now, we also, and that player is Tyler, I can't remember, is it
Shug?
Shug?
Shug.
Or is it, I've heard so many different pronunciations, but Tyler Shug should be on screen now. I mean, it is just pretty. Got a nice even distribution, a slight tendency to the left, but those 2 touchdowns are nice.
Well, and 19 of 27, 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 long arcing touchdowns. This is a wonderful chart. A nice completion percentage over expected. I think the first time he's gone positive in that metric this year. And a dishonorable mention. If Tyler Shug hadn't performed so well in the Saints' second win, this Justin Fields chart would have won Chart of the Week. And this is a reminder that charts don't always have to be pretty. Sometimes they can be funny. Justin Fields' chart should be up on screen now. Oh boy, Justin. 3 passes further than 15 yards down the field, 2 incomplete, 1 intercepted. All three of them incomplete, 1 intercepted. His only touchdown was caught 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. It was a wonderful testament to how good Breece Hall is.
I mean, when I saw this, I was like, I didn't know that they had next-gen stats in the 50s. Because this is, I mean, Justin, the Jets, what are you doing? Why is your quarterback throwing it like it's the 40s? I mean, sorry, NFL wasn't really a thing in the 40s. No, it was. But why does this chart So it looks like if they gave the ball to a 12-year-old and told him to throw it as far as he could.
Well, and I think I texted you this shortly after the Bears game, but the Justin Fields truthers have been weirdly quiet the last few weeks. And I think it might have something to do with the fact that Justin Fields fucking sucks and Caleb Williams has been putting the Bears on his back to the best of his ability. They were loud after the Ravens game. Quiet down.
I mean, I was a Justin Fields truther. I really wanted him to succeed. I really rooted for him to succeed. But Justin, what are you doing?
I haven't given up on him yet, but I need him to go to like
LA.
the Vikings or the Rams or a good team. Not the Bears, not the Steelers, not the Jets. Please, for the love of God, go somewhere with a coach that will coach you and help you. Because you have ungodly amounts of talent, and I want to see you succeed. You're just making it really hard to believe in you.
Justin, we want to see you do well. But those are our charts. Those are our awards. Those are our headlines from last week in the NFL. That wraps it up for Week 11 Headlines Edition. Thank you guys so much for watching. All of the social medias, the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter should be linked in the description. And thanks again for helping set up and produce to our executive producer, Holt Hendershot. We will see you guys in the next one.